Brilliant. Okay, hello everybody, good morning and welcome. I can see you all beginning to join, that's fantastic. I'm delighted to have you with us this morning. As usual, first things first, for those of you who are joining us at the moment, if somebody could pop on the chat, let us know that you can hear me, you can see our holding slide, just to make sure that everything's working well on your end. While you're doing that, the weekly weather update, I know we seem to be having a break from the summer at the moment, and we're delighted to see the grey skies and the slightly cold weather back again, giving us a little reprieve and letting the sunburn heal after the very hot couple of weeks. Yeah, delighted to have you back. That's great. Morning, Holly. That's great. Hi, Gary. How are you? Anthony, brilliant. Thanks, Brian. Okay, brilliant. So we're all ready to go. So welcome to the final episode of our Staying Connected series. And we're delighted that this morning we're going to be doing our Most Trusted Leader session with Declan, the CEO of Woodie's. But don't worry, while this is our last run in our Staying Connected series, we are officially launching the next version of this. We're not going anywhere, we're just changing the focus slightly. So we have launched our summer survey, which is a new pulse focusing on those returning to work or those maintaining their kind of work routines. So do get in touch with us about that if you're interested in that. We have a number of our Trust Index surveys launching at the moment. So we're really beginning to look at the kind of next stage for organizations. And as part of that, we're launching our Looking Ahead Trust Insight series, where we're going to be having a number of snapshots on revisions to organizational plans for this year and looking ahead to next year too. We are going to be continuing with this Thursday morning 10 a.m. slot, and the next session will be on June 25th. So keep an eye out for the invites coming to your inboxes. Just a small bit of housekeeping before we get going. We will be wrapping up as usual within the hour. The slides and recording will be available afterwards, and please do keep the questions coming to the chat and the Q&A function, and we're here to manage all of those today. It seems fitting that we have Colin Hughes back with us this morning, the head of the Graduate Business School. So Colin was actually on one of the first webinars that we did as part of the Staying Connected series. So it's kind of, we seem to be bookending with Colin. So it's great to have that. And actually, without further ado, I would like to introduce Colin to kick off today's session.
Okay, thanks, Fania, and good morning, everyone. We're delighted on just behalf on the Graduate Business School at TU Dublin, we're delighted to be sponsoring this very, I suppose, prescient award this year. I think leadership is a key topic at the moment as governments and businesses and other societal leaders battle leadership challenges at the moment. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of case studies and book chapters written about good and bad leadership during this crisis. It's something that's a key theme for us across our some 30 plus programs, particularly our executive offerings, and particularly our focus that we place on trust. So decades of research shows us the importance of high trust leadership for organizational performance. And so we're delighted to sponsor this award. Declan, as a very worthy award winner this year, joins a cadre of outstanding previous award winners who, like Declan, have been highlighted by their employees, by their colleagues, as being an outstanding leader who's able to build a high trust culture. And it's something that Declan obviously has done an extremely good job at in Woodie's and throughout his career. So I hope everyone enjoys this morning's webinar. I'm delighted to have presented the award to Declan, which seems like a long time ago before the world changed, and really looking forward to this morning's webinar. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Colin. This is Jim Flynn here. Colin, so thankful to TU Dublin and to yourself for all of your support in relation to the ongoing relationship we have with you and your sponsorship of leadership. And your, of course, your own PhD is more relevant than it ever was. I think you have great foresight in terms of looking at the importance of trust in remote working and so on and so forth. So that's a really interesting place to be right at the moment. Thanks also to the team and to Fania. I'm really excited about this morning's session and very thankful for Declan to join us this morning. Looking forward to getting into that discussion. It's really interesting to see how the building of high trust has led to, business performance, led to recognition in multiple fashions across the Woodie's business and across the broader Chadwick's business. working in a DIY store is not the most comfortable of surroundings, and across distributed locations with all sorts of communications challenges that you might assume there would be, let's say, much more difficult for an organization like that to build such a high trust organization. And so I'm really interested in getting into that. Again, I'd just like to highlight to everybody that this is a participant basis, so please drop in any questions at any time that you'd like to do. We'll hopefully get to those, and we're particularly curious as to how this discussion can add value to you and to your workplace. So, so looking forward to getting into that. So first of all, Declan, thank you very much for joining us. Declan is the chairman of Chadwick's group in Ireland, who's the #1 builders, merchants, and DIY retailer. For those of you who are not fully aware, there's 85 locations across Ireland, but particularly in terms of the 35 Woodie's stores that there is throughout the country, who Declan has been leader of since 2013. Declan has a long history in terms of his experience, and he's bringing a lot of experience, not just from the Chadwick's group here this morning, but his experience in terms of spending time in fast-moving consumer goods, particularly with Mars and Johnson & Johnson, who he's going to talk about his 8.5 years in leadership in Dixon's. He's then going to sort of, I suppose, explain to us how it is that that experience has helped build the role of the leader, and how important leadership is to the success of the business, and how that leadership style and business success fit together. Then what he sees as the role of a leader and the important focus areas for a leader to pay attention to and to pay exquisite attention to. And then talk us through the priorities that he set with his team in terms of growing Woodie's and his experience that the journey that Woodie's went on. So it's a lot of information for us to get into, and I'm looking forward to talking to Declan about that. And just one thing I'll mention to participants before we start: Declan is inclined to take a lot of this as common sense, and I'll ask you to pay particular attention to when he does that, because I'm not sure it's so common. So looking forward to getting into that. So thank you very much, Declan, for joining us.
Listen, it's a pleasure, Jim. And listen, the first thing I'd ask you to do is you've outlined a long list of stuff that I'm going to talk about. And for those of you that have done your insights profiles, I lead with red. I'm a very substantial leader with red. So obviously, I never write anything down, and I carry it around in my head, and I make my best fist through it. So, Jim, I'd encourage you to keep me on track as I wander over various places. I'd equally, I wouldn't mind starting out at the outset to thank the Great Place to Work organisation on behalf of everyone in Woodie's for the award. I happen to obviously get the award, but that award is to the 200 odd leaders, and I said that on the night that work in Woodie's. We've done an awful lot in the last 5 or 6 years to an awful lot of investment in leadership development. And if I talk about the challenges in our business, I came into the business in August 2013, and there was nothing wrong with Woodie's as such, bar the fact that we just had the most disastrous recession known to man, which not the business for 6. But there was 25 years of history before that, where a fantastic brand was developed. We made some stunningly good decisions in terms of where we located our business, product categories we got into. We've got a huge Christmas business, and I wouldn't describe myself as an entrepreneur, but my predecessor certainly was, and a fantastic risk taker. So I inherited the business in 2013 that had made some great product decisions, had made some great marketing decisions, had made some fantastic location decisions, and had a fantastic foundation for a business. But what it didn't do, and this is the kind of stuff, I suppose, you go through a career and you accumulate a bit of experience, and you try and fine tune it a bit and layer a bit of your own thought on it. And one of the things that I'd learned, probably from working both with the Mars organisation and working in Dixon's, is what I felt in Woodie's would be, and I see this quite a lot. Is you see a lot of organisations where people come and work for a company, and they think that their job is to look after the interests of that company, and you tend to run it internally, i.e., what do we need to do to reach whatever particular profit objective we have, or whatever goals we set ourselves in this particular year. And we have to go and we have to do all of that. And I just don't think that's the way to run a business. I think businesses have to externalize first and foremost, and clearly that starts with your customer. And I work for the Mars company. I've been an FMCG man. I would say in my heart, there's still a bit of Mars that beats in my heart. I worked for Mars from 1989 to 1997, and I left Mars in 1997 because I got more married to Mars than I got to my wife, and I had to make a choice, and I made the right choice, as you do. But I very, very fondly remember those 8 years. And Mars was a values-led company, and there are 5 principles in Mars, and I haven't worked in that business for 23 years. And there's 5 words and 5 sentences that accompany them. And I still remember the first one. I haven't seen it on the board for 20, God knows how many years. And it's the first principle of Mars, which is it's the quality principle. And it says the consumer is our boss, quality is our work, and value for money is our goal. And I have never, ever forgotten that. And I haven't forgotten it because, one, I obviously drank the Kool-Aid while I was there, but equally the business lived it. And what you learn there is that actually, you know what, any business you're in, you start with your consumer, and that's what matters. And it ain't you, and it ain't who's around you. It's about your consumer, and you build it from there. And that one never left me. And I remember when I worked in, I moved out of FMCG eventually in 2003. I happened to land a job with Dixon's. And I remember at the end of the first day, I thought, oh my God, why haven't I been doing this for 15 years? Because I'm numbers driven. I like series of measures. I like my people stuff. I like my trust stuff. But by God, I like measures as well. And we're all competitive. And I remember when in Dixon's at the time in 2003, and again going back to the whole idea of external versus internal, I came in to run the business having not had a background in retail. And I was mentored by John Clare. John Clare was a scion of British industry, captain of British industry, and various Queen's Awards and all the rest of it. And they've done extraordinarily well for himself. And he mentored me, which is great. And I remember he sat me down and he said, there's 2 things. Young man, he called me. I think it was 42 at the time. He said, young man, I'm very complimentary. And he said, young man, there's 2 things you need to remember. Number 1, what you sell. And number 2, what you sell it at. He said, that's pretty much retail. And you know, something, we're not splitting the atom here. But really this was listen, you buy a lot of products, you take advantage of scale, you get it out there, you pile it high, you put it in front of the consumer. It's better than what anybody else will offer. People are going to come in and they're going to buy it. And you go, okay, that's not too bad. Now that works fine until Amazon came along. And the minute they came along, they had an endless stream of product. And they could get it to you fairly efficiently, and you had a rather expensive cost base. So your whole model at that stage pretty much collapsed. And it's pretty well known, I think, in Dixon's, that Dixon's came within about 1 week of going out of business in 2010, 2011, because that entire thing fell asunder because Amazon came to take it. And there was a chap called John Browett who came in and joined Dixon's, and John Browett brought in the Boston Consulting Group and said, you know what, guys, we're going to start with the customer, and then we're going to figure it out. So everything that you know is going to be torn down. And I went through about 4 years of seeing the Curry's business, the Curry's and PC World business, as it is now, being literally stood on its head in terms of the culture of that business. And it came back pretty much from the ashes on the basis of everything is about what customers need. And everything about it is about us galvanizing the colleagues we have, which we don't pay things ransom to go and think absolute customer first. And then let's start opening up lines of communication so that we can start to hear what's going on the ground. And what was interesting in the 8 years that I ran the Curry's business, because at the end of the day, you're still running a business where the primary decisions have been made in the UK and you're implementing the gloss that you're putting on. For me, it was the gloss of saying, you know what, I can get my arms around this business. If you run Curry's in the UK, 25,000 people or whatever it is working for you, you don't get to know them by name. Now, whereas I can. And I can do that by being a presence on the ground. And doing as I do today, I'm in Drogheda this morning, and you go to your colleagues in Drogheda, you try and get away from the store manager because they just want to sort of protect you and make sure nobody says anything that's going to be too contentious to you. And you want to get somebody off into a corner and you go, listen, you just give me, give me one way I can run this business better. And you'd be amazed at what people, once you have the trust of people in an organisation, what they'll actually tell you about what's really going on. And I remember when I was running Currys and PC World and putting my own glass in it, and I remember looking at Woodie's at the time, because you'd obviously look at other retailers, and I used to say to my team, by God, I'd love to get my hands on that. Because I think, to me, Woodie's was, for all of the strengths that it had, I could see an internalised business. And I thought I would love to get my hands on that business, and I would love to externalise it, which duly came to pass in August 2013. I can talk for about another hour, I presume. What else do I need to talk about? So we've now arrived to 2013.
Yeah. So let me try and sort of bottom line what I'm hearing so far. So there's a piece here about the business the business needing to pivot essentially to meet the needs of the customer, otherwise it wouldn't survive. And then there's a leadership style that goes along with that, which includes visibility, includes good communication, which we're going to get into. But I suppose the key piece here is that the existing model wouldn't make the business viable, and that you're bringing that experience now to 2013 as you face into the Woodie's challenge.
Very much so, and again, as I said earlier, we're not splitting the atom here. I mean, what we actually want to do, or what we wanted at the time to do, was to, number one, again, if we're starting with the customer, Woodie stores at the time had become a little tired. But in general, I would have had an issue with how DIY home and garden stores were set up globally. And first thing we did, again, in terms of externalizing, was I went to a whole variety of countries, starting in the States. I ended up in the States and Germany and the Netherlands, and run around here, there, anywhere the European DIY Retailer Association would tell me to go to try and understand this market. And what I saw again and again, I went to Home Depot in the States, and kind of, everything's up to the roof, and they've got about 90 million quid's worth of stock in a store, and it's falling on top of you and so on. And then I went to B&Q in the UK, and you kind of go, okay, well, that's the same. Well, I kind of knew that. But what really surprised me was I went to OB in Germany, and that was orange as well. And that was sort of, merchandised up to the roof. And I had a principle that I think we'd come to in Dixon's, or Dixon's had taught it to me, and I can't remember where it was. But like, how do you serve a customer if you can't see them? So if you walk into a Woodie's now, we used to stack stock on top of our shelves, the way you'd see it in the supermarket now. So we redesigned the format, so you can't, if you actually walk into a Woodie store, you can't put anything on top of the shelf. And if you look at our business, we're not in the hairy builder business. That's what Chadwicks do. We're in the softer end of the market, and that market is, I say, men don't buy paint. Men buy magnolia paint and white paint. Women buy paint. And when you look across our business, and I say we're in the colour business. That's what we're in. Because the powerhouses of our business are paint or plants. But even when we sell a drill to somebody, we will sell a fine DeWalt drill, a fine beast of a drill, but we won't sell it to a builder, because again, they won't shop in Woodie's. We'll sell it to a DIYer, who's probably, like me, drilling about half a dozen holes a year, but you might as well do that with a good piece of kit. But people don't do that. They're not putting up a stud wall. I mean, they're putting up a picture. And that's about colour as well. So everything we do is about the home. And the home is a place where, where you love the people who live in it. That's your sanctuary, particularly your sanctuary at the moment. And we think we're in a very, very emotional business. That was the insight we had in terms of how we develop our brand, or how we develop our format. And we thought, this is a deeply emotional business, but nobody puts any emotion into it. So the first thing we have to do is calm it down, calm the format down, make it a pleasant enough place. At the end of the day, it's a big shed, but make it as pleasant a place to shop as we possibly can, and get that part of it right, which by and large we've done. And I'm in Drogheda this morning because it's our 32nd, I think, newly formatted store over the last number of years. The next part of the equation is to understand that actually people want nice stuff in their home. So half of the growth that we've had over the last 5 or 6 years has been about transaction growth, because we've made the stores nicer. We've invested in our brand. We've told a different story. The other half of it is that we're actually selling better stuff. We're selling better stuff for better value. So the average transaction, the average size of the transaction within Woodie's has gone up as well. So we've got more people coming into our stores buying better stuff at better value. And those two parts are, again, that internalized part of what you need to do with your business to make it better for customers. But the big part was what I would call building a confident organization.
Okay.
So if you, sorry, go on ahead, Jim.
Yeah. So speaking from the safety of my own car, I can completely understand the idea of wanting to go out and buy a good drill, and for that couple of times a year that I'm likely to use it. But I suppose when you brought your gloss to this, and what your other way of saying this is all common sense, we're not splitting the atom, I think is another phrase that you have to simplify that. You're thinking about the whole customer experience in terms of bringing DIY forward from the stack 'em high focus on selling it at the right price, right to the whole customer experience, and thinking about how that experience is carried back into the home and who's actually buying. So all of these things you are bringing to this this time when you take over running Woodie's, and bringing into the culture of the organization in order to make it successful.
Pretty much, there's an entirety to the package, which is about getting the format right, getting the product mix right, and then getting the people right.
Okay.
Because if you observe customers in our stores, customers do not come to Woodie's that often. So you'll have your diehard plant people who'll be here quite a lot. But we have on average people who come to our stores about 3 times a year.
Oh, wow.
So that being said, the biggest problem that they have is that they don't know where stuff is. So we've got 40,000 products. I can describe to you a store. I could do that in 10 seconds flat. But most people kind of go in and kind of go, oh, mother of God, where do I start? So invariably, the first question that we will be, and colleagues on the floor are far better than me at this, you will know a customer who needs some guidance because it's just there. They have that vacant look about them. So you need an organization that's going to intervene and say, listen, you have the look of somebody there looking for something. What can we help you with today? And interestingly, when a business, and particularly a retail business, we've 1,400 people that work for us, about not quite half our workforce, but not a million miles away from it, would be paid 20 cents above our minimum wage. They're paid 10.30 an hour. We've got some sort of minor bonus schemes on top of that, but you're not at entry level in our business. We wouldn't be known as, and this is general in retail. We're not huge players. We refuse to be a minimum wage organisation, which we have been in the past. So what you need to do, that's it. I want people who are paid 10.30 an hour to actively engage with customers and provide them with an experience that makes them say, good Lord, didn't quite expect that from Woodie's, thank you very much. And that's been our challenge from the outset, because back in 2013, our colleagues, they had their heads down. They had their heads down because fairly classic management, I'm the boss, you're not, and I'm paid whatever it is I'm paid and you're not. And that's fairly classic Theory X kind of style in terms of dealing with lower paid people. And that wasn't an organisation. One, that's not the way to run an organisation, and two, that's just not the correct way to run an organisation either, to make people feel as though they're small.
So Declan, what is the correct way? Like, what is the role of the leader? Moving on to that question, what is the role of the leader as you come in and looking for that change in culture, with the challenge of paying slightly above minimum wage in challenging enough surroundings, distributed across many sites, and looking to change from that Theory X approach? What was your role at that point? What did you focus on?
Well, it's not about money, and it's not about paying people 11 or 12 quid an hour, but it is about recognising that actually I do not deliver for our customers. The people who deliver for our customers are the people who talk to our customers. And no, we're not going to, we simply couldn't afford. When I joined the business, we didn't make anything. We've got a reasonably decent return at this stage. So paying people 12 quid an hour was not the solution. But the solution is, how do you get people who are paid 10.30 an hour? How do you get them to feel like they're worth $1 million? because they are. So what I talk about is I talk about creating a confident organisation. And that's been the essence of what we've done in partnering up with Great Place to Work. That was something that we did quite early. So I brought in a HR director, and the first thing she said to me from IKEA of all places, she said, "Well, listen, we need to we need to get into bed with Great Place to Work," which I'd worked with in Dixon's. I'd worked with you in Dixon's anyway. I thought, yeah, there's a time and a place to do that. And I remember the first time we did our first survey, and we'd introduced this concept to colleagues who'd been classically managed for years. So there was not a high level of trust in the organisation. And I remember there's a horticulturalist, God bless her, Claire, in Mullingar, and I was sitting there having a chat with her when I was visiting Mullingar, and she said, "The results won't be very good." And I said, "Claire, I know, and that's why we're doing it. Because there's 70 odd questions there, and we'll figure out what's what. And then we'll put action plans in place, and we'll leave it from there." So the very first year we did, 2014 was the first time we did a survey. I knew the results would be pretty grim, but the one thing I wanted more than anything else was I wanted a high level of participation. So I think the low level, like your sub 70 participation, just gives that excuse for, well, you know, we didn't get the highly engaged people, they were too busy, or, you know, maybe, you know, if your results are surprisingly good, maybe there's a lot of disengaged people out there that you didn't get. So I went on an evangelical tear around the fact that, guys, whatever, I don't care if you hate this place, will you, for God's sake, just tell us how you feel. And at least we can do something about it at that time. And in general, that was a positive story around, God, would you just please tell us? We did the usual stuff of encouraging our store manager to say, guys, we really do want, you know, give people time, give them space, give them a room. I don't care if it takes them an hour to fill out this survey, for God's sake, let's get it done. And there might have been a bit of arm twisting along the way. Let's not be naive about the whole thing either. But we ended up with about a 97% participation rate, which is a bit North Korean. And to this day, we have that level of participation. So the very, very first protocol for me was, let us understand in an absolutely anonymous way, and we spent so much effort telling people that, you know, first thing, when you have a low trust organisation, the first time you give people a pin to do an anonymous survey, they think you're going to be examining in detail all their, and all that. You have to get over all of that. And we ended up with 39% of people saying we're a great place to work, which I was quite surprised by. Not in a negative way. I didn't think it would be that high. And we've obviously gone from 35 to 84 in whatever it is, a 5-year period at this stage. So we started off with the benchmark to kind of go, right, what do we need to do? And I don't know if we're the same at that stage as any classic Theory X retail organisation, but really you had people who were made feel small. So there was no culture of recognition. There was no telling anybody anything. Messages that would cascade through the organisation got as far as the store manager, never went any further. People, you know, the classic management style of going around and finding out all the wrong stuff that you're doing. I mean, I've got a boss like everyone, and if he rings me up and says, "Declan, you know, you missed your target yesterday by X, Y, or Z, or this month you missed your profit by, you know, what did you do wrong?" You're kind of, you know, you're on the defensive and you're feeling a bit. I've always had a theory. Any interaction, if I can give anybody a tip today, any interaction that you have in a leadership position with anyone, you need to make that person feel better about themselves at the end of that interaction. And if you have a guiding principle like that, and if that guiding principle is, if it's within your organisation, you've sort of got half a chance of making people feel good. So we went on. We spend about, what do we spend a year? We spend about 600,000 odd a year on HR initiatives that are, and we turn over 250 odd million. We made about 22 million last year. I'm not sure what we'll make this year. We made about that. So that just gives you an idea of the resources that we have available to us. So the classic thing came out of that. We don't have a recognition culture. We have poor communication. And we have just classic ways of just of making people feel small. We had very little training and development and career path. What's that? I get on because somebody taps me on the shoulder because I'm a favourite, and all that stuff that you kind of go, how in God's name did we ever get to that? So the very, very first thing we did was we launched a leadership development program, called it Accelerate. The first 6 people to participate in that program were me and my team. I love hearing this sort of thing, you know, where CEOs think I don't need any training because I'm a CEO. I mean, just how daft is that? So you start with yourself, and you start with your team, and that program then cascaded through the organisation. That got into, you know, insights. We've all done our insights. We've all done insights. We've all done our coaching. We've all done our above the line and below the line. We need to live above the line. We can choose how we think. And again, nothing remarkable about this. But Accelerate is now a part of, like, we brought in some very, very talented people recently on the digital side of our business, and bang, into Accelerate, because that is the cultural identity that we have. And what I've recently been going around and saying to people in our business, again, you'll have these conversations with colleagues on the ground, and you'll say, I don't think we've anyone with any notions about themselves left, have we? And they'll go, no, I don't think so. And I'll say, yes, because if you've got notions about you, it's not the place for you. And we have a set of values around.
I just pause you there for 1 second on that, right? So this is one of the things that really intrigues me about your journey, is you're building a confident organization on the one hand almost, while on the other hand, and we chatted about this the other day, like growing up in Cork, we all have notions in Cork, right? So it's a thing to go with Cork.
I married a Cork woman.
There you go.
You're an outlier.
So, okay. So then the things that you're saying here that are quite simple require a lot of balance and a lot of judgment to be confident but have no notions, to let's say make everybody feel better about themselves in every interaction is quite a high bar, while still delivering on the types of numbers that we're looking up here on the slide in front of us. So you know there is a drive for higher business performance happening at the same time. You're juggling a lot in here.
You are, but I think it's a question of, well, my role. I love the fact that people come to me as a CEO and they always say, "Oh, you must be very busy," and I go, "It's not my job to be busy. You know, I've got lots of people around here, and they're very, very busy people, and they're doing lots of stuff. And my job is not to be busy. My job is to think, and my job is to communicate, and my job is to show example, and just try and direct the organisation by, obviously by what I say, but hopefully by the consistency between what I do and what I say. So I spend an awful lot of time communicating. But the reason why I would talk specifically around the fact of not tolerating ego in an organisation, again, goes back to the Morris experience, which is values based. So there's a million and one things that we've done, but there's a couple that I'd isolate. Very, very early on, we put 3 pillars into the ground, and this was late 2013, 2014. I said, listen, there's a couple of things we're going to do here, because the business didn't have any sort of mission, purpose, and values. I said, there's a couple of pillars we're putting in the ground here, and there's 3 of them. And the first one is we run an efficient business, because the business was mired in controls. And you should, and with everything that I've just said, if I'm going to be consistent, the first thing I should have said was actually the third thing I said, which was we always do the right thing for the customer. And I didn't start off on that because we were so internalized that we didn't even think of the customer. We always thought, what's the right thing to do? And the right thing we did from the point of view of overly controlling the business created a whole load of inefficiency. So I thought the first thing I have to say is, guys, we are going to run this efficiently. So there's going to be some tough stuff going to be done here to get this done, but you know something, we're going to sort it out. We don't have a future. And number 3 was we always do the right thing for the customer. But number 2, which we put in the ground, was we value our colleagues. And we put that out in November 2013 or whatever it was, when we had a culture where we just did not value our colleagues. And not that that's, and I'm not going to criticize that, that's just the way an awful lot of businesses work, that they simply kind of think, actually, we will make onto colleagues, you know, X, Y, and Z, and they will implement it, and that is how good businesses work. And we come at it from the point of view, listen, if we value our colleagues, you kind of don't have to run it. because it runs itself at that point. Because once you move from 38 to 84, what I found in 2013, 14, 15 is you had people who were very afraid of change. We had an awful lot of resistance to change. So we go through the leadership development program, put about 200 people on that, and part of that, there's a certain cohort of people didn't make that journey because they were just stuck in this thing of just that insecurity. Well, the security of this is the way I've always done it, and having an inability to make that change. But by and large, the vast majority of people could see that once they saw that change become a positive, it's back to that whole thing about creating a movement. And I would very much see in trying to create a confident organisation, you are creating a movement where I'm talking to people since this pandemic happened about what's going to happen in the next one. You're talking to colleagues. I was talking to a colleague yesterday. I was in a Castle Bar store yesterday, and I was talking to a colleague. I'm 57 this next month. I'd say she's older than me. She's 59, 61, that neck of the woods. And she's saying, Declan, listen, we've really got to change fast for this internet thing. And I'm kind of going, that is just fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. She said, we are going to have to go pretty much flat out on click and collect, but we're going to have to do it better than everybody else. So we're going to have to do it at an Amazon level. Now, if I went back sort of 5 or 6 years and sort of said, listen, guys, X, Y, or Z initiative, you just had that resistance because you didn't have trust within the organisation. So there's a whole question of the work that we do around communication and recognition in particular. There's a thing that I'd advise everyone, particularly if you're multi-site and you've got a lot of people. It's a thing called Work Vivo, Work V-I-V-O, Cork company. And the great thing about Work Vivo, if I give you a practical example about just how good Work Vivo is, basically it's an app. And it's a communications and recognition app. And you kind of think, actually, it's a bit of Facebook or it's a bit of WhatsApp, but actually there's more to it than that. So how we use Work Vivo, we're, again, I'll give you a lovely example of how it works this morning. It's Pride Month this month. We're not an advocate brand. We're not standing up there and saying Woodie's is at the forefront of Pride, because like for Woodie's, like we're DIY. But internally, we sort of said, listen, this is Pride Month. We don't care who you choose to love, but if you don't love customers and colleagues, maybe not the place for you. And so we're making a bit of a song and dance about Pride. And God bless, this chap in one of our stores just put up a post on this, put a picture of himself, with 12 or 13 pictures of himself. And he's saying, I'm standing up and I'm saying, I'm gay and I'm bloody proud of myself. And I don't know whether this is the first time he's told the whole world he's gay or not. But then all his, so he puts up this post, puts up a whole load of pictures, and all his colleagues in his store came in and liked that post. And I stuck an old like on it, and I stuck an old comment on it, and I just sort of said, listen, we're here to support you in whatever way you're going to live your life. But for one thing, be true to yourself, and it's fantastic that you are being. And this chap, we have an internal communications mechanism where somebody, and he said, I'm really nervous about putting up this post. I thought, how fabulous. And he can tell the whole organisation that he's standing up and he's proud of himself, which is super. And Work Vivo allows you to do that. It's a peer-to-peer recognition thing, which is very different from WhatsApp, and it ain't Facebook. But the real beauty of it is that behind that there stands a complete communications portal. So I publish a blog every Thursday. I've been writing blogs every Thursday for 15 years. And it's amazing, you don't run out of stuff to say. And because of Work Vivo, 98% of our colleagues have the Work Vivo app on their phone. And I've asked, I said, listen, I write this blasted blog, does anyone read it? And actually everybody does. Because we can measure that on Work Vivo, and they also, some people read it twice, interestingly, and so I know I have a direct line of communication to 1,400 people, and I can use that to steer certain sort of directions that I want to steer within the organisation. But on the night of the lockdown, and this is where this thing really came into its own. There was a very confusing situation around DIY retail. This was on the 28th of March, and there was a question of, does DIY retail open or does it not open? And Varadkar made his announcement at 9 o'clock at night. So at 9:05, I had a message on Work Vivo to 1,400 people in our organisation saying, you know what, we don't know what's going on. We're going into a meeting and we're going to update you as to exactly whether you're going to come to work tomorrow morning or whether you're not going to come to work, because it's quite a confused situation. And at 12:30 that night, with pretty much the whole of Woodie's looking, and then you'd loads of people sort of chattering away saying, "Listen, what's going to happen? What's going to happen?" Actually got quite tense, because while we've 84% of people who actually think we're a great place to work, that does imply that there are 16 who don't, and those 16 have a voice as well. And in a very, very uncertain situation like that, that got a little bit tense. But needless to say, at 12:30 at night, I could say, "Guys, do not come to work tomorrow morning." And obviously I've had feedback from what goes on in our competition. And because they don't have a similar means of communicating with people, that it's all fairly classic sort of email. If you're not in the email, like, what can you do at home? Or relying on managers to cascade information through. And what's the information security like when you're starting to use WhatsApp and so on? We have a fantastic tool that allows people to get instantaneous communication, that allows us to put trading information onto a communications portal, every procedure known to man that we have. You don't need to go run into your manager to do it. So we put a lot of work into communication, a lot of work into recognition, which is what WorkVivo does as well. And we've done things. We have a Oscars. We do the Oscars. We have a store of the year.
Just that for 1 second, Declan. A couple of clients have come in and said how good WorkVivo is, and I'd also like to highlight the fact that it's your use of it. Okay, so you communicated that you were going to communicate, which is as much as you could do at that particular point, and you let people know. I mean, there must have been a fairly compelling argument, say, well, we let people know when we know. You know, which is often the discussion. So it's your use of the technology is one of the reasons why you get such value from it, clearly.
Very, very much. I was in Castlebar yesterday morning, and I arrived there early enough to do the morning brief. Poor old store manager gets a bit I never tell people I'm coming to stores, no, and I don't want to surprise them. It's the fact that they do a dog. I'm in Drogheda this morning. They knew I was coming because I was doing a review. So of course they do the dog and pony show, and they tidy up every shelf, and there's people running around doing all sorts of stuff. And you kind of I've no interest in doing that. When I come to the store, I want to talk to people. But I was delighted yesterday in Castlebar that I got into I was there about 8:45 in the morning, and I did the morning brief with the team, and they said no. And one of the team just put their hand up and said, "Listen, I just really want to congratulate you and compliment you on just the way you've kept us all in the loop during all of this." And you kind of go, "Oh, that's cool." You know, that's the kind of stuff that a high trust or the kind of kudos that they get from their people. So yeah, a lot. My job is communication, and most of the problems that end up on my desk tend to be about communication, to be honest.
And tell me, Declan, just going a little segue for a moment. Supposing you arrive in some unnamed store, we'll say, and you look at your Great Place to Work results, and they're an outlier, and they're particularly challenging. How would you think about supporting that manager who's dealing with let's say a tough set of results and outside of the rest of the group?
Yeah, I won't name the store, God bless it, but I went to a store because sometimes specifically I go to stores because you see outliers, and you just rock up and arrive, and then you can pick a day when the manager isn't there, which is always a good thing. Because when a manager is there, they do tend to shepherd you a little bit. And sometimes if the manager is there, I'll just tell them to go off and run their store for a while. And say, I'm just going to wander around here, find someone. Our store's on a Friday morning, not particularly busy. You can always find a colleague, and you can sit down and say, listen, and they're used to it. They get a little apprehensive when the operations director comes into the store, because his job is to look at the shelves and look at the price tickets and look at compliance and look at all of that. But at this stage, they kind of know when I come that, you know, there's no need to be terrorized. I'm not going to go looking at the standards. I'm going to wander around. I'm going to talk to people, and that takes time. That's not going to change in a year. But after a couple of years, people understand that what they say to you will be said in confidence. So I had an example in my own mind of a particular store that there was an outlier. I just went down, the manager wasn't there, spent about 3 hours in the store, just wandering around, finding people in corners. And then eventually people tell you what's going on. So the way to support a manager at that stage is to default to our values. So what you will always find in retail stores, you'll find people who, for all the effort that you put into it, just won't make the journey with you. So this is going back to people who have, and so notions can be notions of ego, but notions can also be notions of sabotage and a little bit of destruction as well. And people can affirm themselves in that way. And again, we don't tolerate that either. So we'll manage performance quite aggressively in situations like that. But you have to find out first. So I think it's part of my role is to go down and talk about our values. So this is going back to the pillars on the ground are fine. We also have 6 values in our business, and 5 of them are behavioural. And there's one of those values which people always find, in the same way as I talked about Mars and the quality principle, there's 4 other principles. We launched 6 values, and the 3rd of them was we are homely and real. And really what that means is we're authentic, and we don't do notions, and we don't do bullshit. You know, we just kind of say it as it is, but in a pleasant way. We respect people. We absolutely respect people. I am paid more than anyone in the organisation, but I am no better than anyone in the organisation, and that's really, really clear to every. Well, at least I think it's really clear to everybody, and I think the numbers probably back that up. So homely and real is one of them, but the other one is enthusiasm. So we're enthusiastic, we're expert, we're helpful, we're homely, we're inspiring, and we offer great value. They're basically the 6 values of our business. And when you go down to a store that's problematic, you talk to colleagues and say, talk to me about the values. So, I mean, the numbers are telling me this isn't a particularly enthusiastic organisation. This part of our business is a bit of an outlier. Just talk to me about that, because I just need to understand what can I do to influence that. So I say to people, say, give me one thing I can do to get you from an outlier to a situation where you're not. And invariably that comes down to managing performance. And it comes down to people being afraid to manage performance. And my diagnosis of that was that in the old culture of our organizations, and old cultures do not die quickly. And actually sometimes parts of those old cultures permeate into your existing culture. Is that I find people are afraid to manage performance because, number one, it's human. And it can get a bit awkward, and it's hard to sit down and manage people who might be disrupting your performance, because you might say something wrong, and you might end up in the WRC, and you might end up in a witness stand, or you might be whatever the case may be. And we had one manager once who went to the WRC, and he made a bit of a hames of it, and we lost the case, and I don't know what it cost us, whatever the case may be. And I said the one thing that will not be said to that manager is he will absolutely not be taken to task for what happened in that day. He'll be praised to the height for going in there and saying what he said, and just telling the truth regardless of where the truth led him. And I think we need to encourage people that regardless of any consequences, we get in and we manage poor performance, and it comes flying out in the results. Because our score on managing underperformers in the business is still, it's obviously nowhere near where it was years ago, but it's far, far better now than it was, but it still remains a little bit poor. So get in there, manage it, and I see that as my role, to try and create a little bit of trust that starts to get that stuff managed.
So you get in there with an open mind, you investigate yourself, and you manage the performance. One of the things that we spoke about the last day was the role of the leader in creating psychological safety to enable people to come on that journey with you, or to give them the best opportunity to come on that journey with you. Could you talk to me just a little bit more about that role of the leader in terms of creating psychological safety?
Well, I suppose the best example of that is what's happened since this whole COVID outbreak. And actually, I found the whole business continuity process quite interesting. We dusted off the old continuity plan, sort of end of February, start of March. I remember having a look at that, and I thought, this is going to be, if this develops into a crisis, number one, it's me who decides whether it's a crisis or not, and then we start to manage it from there. And I remember looking at the document, and there was the crisis management part of it, and I thought, okay, there's going to come a time where I may or I may not. And when Brad closed the schools, I thought, right, guys, crisis time. Into the room, we formed the crisis team. This is what it is, and let's start meeting. And what I found really helpful in all of that crisis management documentation was you were told that you have to sit down and say, what are your objectives in this crisis? And we ended up with 4. I think the original draft was about 33. And I thought, no, guys, and a lot of those were internalized. We need to sort of make the year, we need to do X, Y, and Z. And I kind of go, no, guys. We need to sit back and really think about what we're doing And the first objective we came out with was that we need to keep our colleagues safe, number one. And we need to run the business through the prism of psychological and physical safety. And physical safety, obviously, the first part of it, but equally, we added on psychological safety to that. And then the other three were, we need to keep the business viable, clearly, because we're facing an existential threat. We need to pay everyone, which included our suppliers and even our landlords as well. We need to, we're having arguments with a few of them. And then finally, we need to do our bit for the national effort. And what we did pretty relentlessly, so I've held 4 virtual town halls at this stage, and I do those for colleagues, I do those for support office, and I do them for managers, is that we just kept on saying that regardless of what it takes, there's a sort of a Mario Draghi part of regardless of what it takes, we are going to keep people safe. We're going to do absolutely everything we do. So one of my questions now when I go to stores is on a scale of 1 to 10, tell me how safe you're feeling. My original question was, tell me how safe you're feeling. People say I'm feeling very safe because the CEO's just asked you. So I thought, no, I need to fine tune that question. So it's on a scale of 1 to 10. And then obviously people will say, well, listen, I'm a 7. And you go, well, listen, how do I get from a 7 to a 10? The logical follow-up question. And you may get some ideas out of that, but generally you get, something, you're doing everything you can. Actually the 7's me, I'm just naturally a bit nervous. So we've spent the guts of €500,000 at this stage on COVID measures. You'll see those in stores, and a lot of that happened very, very quickly. So as part of our crisis management, I refused to open our stores on St. Patrick's Day unless we had proper distancing measures in place. And the guys said to me, they said, listen, we can get all of this in place by the 18th. I said, no, not acceptable. We are not opening tomorrow. I am not opening stores unless our colleagues are 100% safe. And I remember ringing up my boss on the 16th saying, I'm thinking of not actually allowing people into my shops tomorrow. This may hit the press. And he goes, listen, do what you need to do what you need to do. And the rationale behind that was that, let's not think about it now. Well, first of all, obviously it's a moral obligation to make sure that nobody gets sick. And we're open 3.5 weeks at this stage. And again, I was saying that in Carrick-on-Shannon yesterday. I said, well, 3.5 weeks open, nobody's gotten sick. And that's our key measure. But if you think about, once we get past this, the actions of leadership in this business will not be forgotten. And if we assume that there's going to be substantial next stage change, and that's why I'm here in Drogheda today talking to our operations team, because we now need to think about what Woodie's 3.0 looks like, and that's probably from 2022 on, and we will get we'll get to that if the organisation feels that it hasn't been properly kept safe, which includes obviously keeping them informed as to the status of the business, because people are obviously very worried about their jobs. If we don't have that level of trust, and my objective once we get to Great Place to Work survey at the end of the year, my objective is that this 84 that we have goes higher. It may not, because it's a very uncertain situation, but that would be a key measure of what we do. So if we don't, like the idea, people sort of somebody came to me last week and said, we're spending, if we keep on going the way we're going, we're going to spend between 200 and 250,000 on hand sanitizing. And I said, there is no way on earth we are spending less money on hand sanitizer for the next 4 to 6 weeks, because it is an absolute message to your team that internalized part of, oh my God, we're spending money, matters more than their safety. And we are just not going there, regardless of the profit consequences.
And Declan, I think that's a good place to start to bring it together, because, well, first of all, I could certainly stay engaged with this conversation for quite some time longer, and I know we wouldn't get to it, and we'd love the opportunity to get you back if you're happy to come back. So much coming through there in terms of the chat, and particularly one comment there from Karen to say that you've got bucket loads of humility and sincerity. Along with that confidence, I would add. So
yeah, listen, I think I'm pretty good at what I do, but I think the idea that you anoint yourself as some greater being is it's offensive, really.
I'd like to bring Gary in from Kunanagal, just in terms of the key takeaway points that everybody who's on the webinar this morning could think about going away. So some reflections from yourself, Gary. Gary is a commercial director from Kunanagal. It's a long history with Great Place to Work, and Kunanagal did get the award of Most Trusted Leader last year. So it'd be interesting to bring him in this conversation. Thanks, Gary.
Declan, thank you very much. That was excellent. I think it's remarkable how great leaders always make the difficult sound easy and pragmatic. And I think you've certainly done that over the last hour or so. Just one of the things that struck me was I think it's easy to underestimate when you listen to people like yourself talk, and I think sometimes it's easy to underestimate the impact you've had. I mean, your organization is highly diverse. It's multi-site. It's I would imagine relatively low on academia, much like our own organization. So building trust is not an easy task. So there's obviously some sort of a secret sauce there. What I picked up was the authenticity, the simplicity of the message. It seems like this enduring purpose that you have around customers, colleagues, and efficiencies sounded like the key for me, because it shone through from your time in Dixon's and in Mars prior to that. But again, you can have all the best enduring purposes unless it's consistently applied. It's unbelievably difficult to get any sort of an impact from. I love the selling colour piece. I thought that was excellent as a differentiation. I never realised that, but now when I look at my experiences in a Woodie's or in a B&Q or in one of your other competitors, I can actually see it now. I get it, but I hadn't seen it before. So I thought that was excellent. What I found interesting is that your leadership has absolutely driven this. What's your thoughts on leadership? What is it? What do you believe are the key aspects that you've brought into your organization? Would you have 2 or 3 key points that you feel on the leadership side that were important or impactful or most impactful? I think that'd be really interesting to know.
Do you want me to answer that?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think I definitely think a set of values. You do have to have an anchor in terms of what you believe in, and I think once you have that and you can apply that level of consistency and that authenticity around it, then your organisation is going to come with you. But I think there has to be a real paranoia. You have to have that, and you have to instill that in your leadership team about any inconsistency between what you say and what your organisation does. Hence the whole idea of just making sure that those that might have notions about themselves have to develop their careers elsewhere, because it just undermines everything that we do. So stick your pillars in the ground and be consistent about them. I haven't mentioned the word listening at all today, which I struggle with. I like the sound of my voice more than I keep it quiet, and really having a good listening organisation. I've got great balance in my team. I've got a couple of reds like myself going around sort of creating all sorts of chaos, but I have got some very, very balanced people in my team. I've got a super finance director who sort of says, Declan, you're losing the running yourself a bit there now, can you calm it down, and getting that balance in your leadership team, I think, is really good. It is certainly not about you. It's about creating that culture across your leaders. But pillars in the ground, get your values.
Declan, I'm really...
everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm afraid it is actually 11 o'clock, and I'm aware people are beginning to drop off and people have next meetings to go to. So I'm actually going to call a halt. I'm afraid. I think we all could have listened for another hour. So Gary and Declan, I think we're going to have everybody back if you're all up for it. There was lots of questions coming in around how you've supported managers, how you've used your insights. So there's lots of follow-up questions, and we'll figure out the best way to deal with all of those.
Because I'm happy to engage with anybody if they want to link into me on LinkedIn or whatever. I'm more than happy to engage if anybody has any thoughts. We don't have particular secrets, and we're happy to share.
Brilliant. Just I always think it's better when somebody else does the words piece. But Una, who was on one of our webinars earlier, she runs Mars Pharmacy, has just said, thank you so much. You're a true leader, Declan. So, and I think that really sums up people really clicking in with the authenticity and the sincerity and the insight. And like, we won't go too heavy on the cork thing next time, right? Like, we have to get a balance in all of this, okay? But just for me, I know, Jim, you'll want to do your own thank yous, but thank you to the team. Declan, thank you very much. Colin, Marina, all of your work in the setup, and Gary for joining us at the end there. And Jim, I'll hand over to you to do the final piece. Just
Echo those thanks, and particularly Declan. I have to say I learned a lot myself, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm very thankful to you.
Thank you. No, thank you. As I say, pleasure to participate, and thank you for recognising us. It puts a pep in our step.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Bye bye.